Welcome to episode 44 of ECTEL Bytes. The show is a production of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority, and I'm your host, Coretta Crooks-Charles, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. Thank you so much for joining us. The first CTU Caribbean Artificial Intelligence Forum is slated for July 23rd and 24th at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine in Trinidad and Tobago. The theme for the forum is AI for Caribbean Transformation, Governance, Innovation, and Resilience for a Shared Digital Future. The forum will gather policymakers, regulators, development partners, private sector leaders, academia, civil society, youth, and other key stakeholders to support a harmonized, ethical, and Caribbean-centered AI ecosystem. And to tell us all about the significance of this event, we have not one, but two guests. The Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, or the CTU, Mr. Rodney Taylor, and the Executive Director of the Artificial Intelligence Innovation Center, the AIIC, at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Craig Ramlal. Welcome to ECTEL Bytes, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having us.
Happy to be here.
So we have quite a bit of questions to go through, so we're going to start right away. So artificial intelligence is described as one of the most transformative technologies of our time. For many Caribbean citizens who are still trying to understand what AI really means, how would you explain the significance of this moment, and why should the Caribbean be paying attention now?
Thank you for the question. Let me go first. We are, of course, the CTU. We are an intergovernmental organization focused on technology, information and communication technology. And AI is now one of the newest and hottest innovations in terms of technology, and its ability to change the way we work, the way we do business, the way we teach and learn is very transformative. Of course, many of these tools we're using now in our daily lives, and we are seeing the impact. So it's important for us to understand artificial intelligence, not from an engineering point of view. We have people who have that understanding, that knowledge of how it works, such as Craig, who's on this call here. But its impact on the economy, its impact on our work and our business, our schools and so on, we need to understand that, how it changes, its impact on productivity, its impact on the job market, what kind of new skills will be required to interact with AI tools, how it impacts across all sectors, so whether it's tourism and agriculture, how can these tools be leveraged across these different sectors to help us to become more productive and live more meaningful lives. So we have to understand that. And then what policies governments have to put in place to make an enabling environment. So how, when we're using, for example, data, how is that data protected in these when using artificial intelligence? So it's important that governments put the right environment in place to support the use of these technologies. And again, just bringing the regional perspective, it's important that we, within CARICOM, do this in a harmonized manner, so that what Grenada is doing is in sync with what Dominica and what Barbados is doing, because we are small markets and we can benefit from economies of scale, but it also helps because we are trying to build a single market and economy, and it's important that we have standardization with respect to technology, and AI is just one of those new transformative technologies.
Okay. Thanks for that, Mr. Taylor. Do you want to chime in, Dr. Ramla?
Sure. I think what makes AI different now, because AI has been around since the name was coined in 1956. The UAE St. Augustine has been doing work on AI since the 1980s. The first AI conference in the Caribbean was actually from UAE, was in 1989. But what makes it different to now is that it has transformed itself into a general purpose technology. I think that's the major push here. We are on the phase 4 hype cycle of what AI is. We are moving towards a hype cycle 5. If we can get the policies created well, if we can really extract the value, as with what Mr. Taylor is saying, for the benefits of our Caribbean people. So I think that it's we're a little bit we're getting ourselves together a little bit later than we should have. But I think that now is the time to at least bootstrap stuff, which I suppose is why we're having this discussion here to talk about the conference and so on.
Okay, thank you. So when we talk about AI readiness, we often focus on technology, but readiness also involves people, policies that Mr. Taylor mentioned, the skills and investment. Where would you say the Caribbean currently stands on its AI journey? And you just mentioned a bit about it, Dr. Ramlal, but where do we stand on the journey and what are the biggest gaps we need to address to ensure that we're not left behind?
All right, let's unpack that question then. So if you look at each state independently, it will be uneven. The AI journey. If you look at the Caribbean versus what is happening in other regions, it would be in a case where we are on average we are doing okay on average. What has happened is that the world has set about a series of processes that they have agreed to at the humanity level on what AI policies should look like, on what the dialogues should be on, what the science and the direction that we should be moving towards. So that is under the UN. They have agreed to that. Under the CTU, directed by Mr. Taylor, the Caribbean AI Task Force was born. I'm the chair of the task force, under Mr. Taylor. And the discussion there is how do we harmonize the AI policies? How do we create recommendations? And how do we look at how the use of the technology as well as the challenges and the benefits of the technology for the Caribbean? What has happened is that you have three pillars, I think, that we need to push for AI development. You have the teaching part of it, which is on the academic side. How do you develop the courses? How do you develop the programs so that the countries themselves can build these AI tools to help themselves? You have this discussion about consumer versus producer, and that is a major push there. It has to be an academic and research-based discussion, right? Because you cannot compete with larger economies. You cannot build systems to come. You are not going to build the next ChatGPT from the Caribbean, right? The cost that it would take for the data infrastructure and the investment, the venture capital investment would be too high. So what are the things that you would focus on? What is the research that you would focus on that is niche to the Caribbean that makes you available to play in the market itself? So that's one. The second one is the policies, which Mr. Taylor has discussed, harmonized policies across us, where the markets, we can compete with markets at scale, but we can also we can protect our people. So we can look at what vendors want to sell to us and how we can make sure that our people are protected by data privacy laws by not being vendor locked into certain individuals or certain companies. And the third one is in helping the private sector move forward in the commercialization aspect of it. So how do you move the research into the commercial sector? How do you help the commercial sector develop their own products and services that they can go out and sell? Academia themselves can't do business. All academics really should focus on research, but the private sector and the commercial sector is the ones who would move these business tools forward. So if you look at each country individually, they will have uneven gaps and how you compare all of them. UNESCO readiness, the RAM assessment looked at that. The UNDP's ILA also looked at that. But this CTU AI task force, which looks at this harmonized set of policies and recommendations, which you have this Caribbean AI Forum as part of, that came in line with this Caribbean AI task force. I think that is going to help us move forward to kind of even up the countries so that they themselves can benefit moving forward. Not every country has a university. Not every country has a moving private sector. But there are things that we can do that other countries can work with, as Mr. Taylor said.
Right. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, I do believe in Trinidad you have a minister for artificial intelligence. That's in his portfolio, right? Yeah.
Yes, we have a minister for artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And
So,
public administration. So
ah,
yeah.
right. Okay. So the
Yeah,
first, Oh, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I just wanted to add to that. That's important that there's some foundational things that we also need in the region. For example, the connectivity gaps. There are still some connectivity gaps that exist. So persons without access to the internet. And it's important, of course, to access these tools, you must have access to the internet, you must have access to devices and so on. So it's important that we address those connectivity gaps and affordability gaps where that connectivity exists, but it is costly. And for the underlying and basic infrastructure also to be in place. So internationally certified data centers that have the capacity to house this data and process data. Very importantly as well, the legal environment, so the governance around it, the data protection legislation, and those kinds of things that would support the innovation in the market. It's very important that we have those things in place and not just access to the tools.
All right. Thanks for that, Mr. Taylor. So the first upcoming Caribbean Artificial Intelligence Forum presents a major milestone for the region. What inspired the creation of the forum and what conversations do you hope will emerge there?
So Dr. Ramlal mentioned that we established the task force last year because again, this topic is just too important for us to ignore or for us to say, well, let every country, work on its own. So the objective was to have a regional discussion, bringing together engineers, academics, business people, policy people, regulators to have a discussion on what recommendations we can make to governments around AI policies. What are the areas we can focus on so that we are not left behind? And so the work of this task force really, having met over a period of a year, we produced a report which has been out for public consultation. We received several inputs to that document, and we will be launching that task force report at the AI Forum that's coming up next week. And again, the objective is to ensure that we are on the same page, that we understand the technology from a basic point of view, and that we understand its impact on jobs, on all sectors. Many of our economies in the region are based on tourism. How will artificial intelligence impact tourism? How will it impact security, in particular cybersecurity, as these new tools present not only opportunities for good, but also for bad. They can be misused. You can have public misinformation and these kinds of things. So what proactive steps can we take as a region, in particular, looking from a public sector point of view, what policies we can put in place, and how can we work together to help drive this adoption of this innovation within the Caribbean?
Okay, I heard you mention, shaping policies that could be passed on to the leaders and so on, but I'm just wondering, are they invited to this forum, or it's just more so for the academia, the youth, the civil society? Will you be having anyone from government there?
Absolutely. We will. The invitation has been extended definitely to our member states. Everything we do really is for our member states. We have 21 countries that are members of the CTU. And in fact, the ministry you mentioned, the Minister of Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence, will be giving the keynote address at the opening day of the conference when the report is being launched. The Honorable Dominic Smith, who is the Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and the President of the CTU.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, so the region has been working to close the digital divide, and you made reference to this earlier, Mr. Taylor, particularly around connectivity and affordability. How do we ensure that the adoption of AI does not create a new divide where only certain countries, businesses, and communities benefit?
Well, let me just say that going back to the connectivity issue, that many of our countries have universal service funds and universal service obligations. So how do we bring connectivity to those places where it is not necessarily affordable or where there's no economic case? We have to redouble our efforts on that, ensuring that we do leave no one behind. So the connectivity is there. Even where there is connectivity, we have to address the affordability issue. What is through subsidies or other incentives that make it feasible. So we want to ensure that AI doesn't create a further divide, so that those persons who are literate and those persons who have access versus those persons who don't have access and don't know how to use the tools. So From a policy perspective, we have to be very determined and look at those groups that may be traditionally left out, whether it's women or youth or the elderly or persons with disabilities. We ensure that the policies are specifically tailored to address that issue of the digital divide. So it takes a determined effort to ensure that we don't further create divides within our society.
Do you want to chime in, Dr. Ramla?
Yeah, sure. Yes, of course. I think it's also important to recognize that once you start having gaps in connectivity, and I guess affordability as well, but once you start having those gaps, the time it takes to close that gaps widens the AI divide, right? So if you look at connectivity, digital divide versus the AI divide itself, the reason why the time it takes to close that gap on the digital divide constantly widens the AI divide, it is because of the loss of data that the contributing parties will enter into that space. And so they become underrepresented or not represented at all. So even if you build out your frameworks to have common data commons, or you have policies that guarantee for all of the Caribbean states that is protected, if those individuals are not participant, to help develop those AI solutions from the start, it would be difficult for them to then participate after. So that is something that we really need to look at to kind of close. As the digital infrastructure is changing across the world. Right now we're discussing satellites and connecting from the antennas of our phones directly to satellites. So that the entire game is changing in that digital divide question.
Okay, thanks for that, Dr. Ramla. All right, so what are some practical ways AI can help address Caribbean challenges, whether it's in areas such as education, agriculture, healthcare, climate resilience, public services, etc.?
I think from maybe I can go first this one, because this speaks directly to the interim report from the Caribbean AI Task Force. And we discussed that in detail, even in that interim report, how it can help in the economies that are very important to the Caribbean. These will be healthcare, climate resilience, education, agriculture, as some of the major ones that we see that we need to implement. So for a couple of them, for education, AI can support teachers with lesson preparation, personalized learning assistance, as well as administration. And healthcare, it can help with screening, it can help with clinical decisions, management of medical records. And in agriculture, it can help with detecting crop diseases, forecast yields, optimizing irrigation and fertilizer use, and so on. The AIIC itself is considered as a research hub for the Caribbean. We are partnered with many entities who help in developing this type of research. It is the movement of the research into the private sector as well as the public sector is the part that we kind of let more control go to. And so we are building things like AI automated robots that look at crops and determine what are the diseases that are in the crops and how do you pick cocoa, building robotic systems that harvest cocoa, also looking at systems that plasma-based systems that mimic lightning, the creation of lightning, and pull air from air and water, make fertilizer, so make nitrates and then dissolve that into the soil and so on. So many very interesting things are happening right now. Remember, we have been in this game in AI since the 1980s. So we have a long heritage of work that we are building upon that is doing things. I want to mention one more thing. When we launched the Caribbean AI Task Force interim report, we also launched the Artificial Intelligence Innovation Center, and we set up a Caribbean Voices AI initiative where we looked at 28,000 manually transcribed Caribbean audio clips to build speech recognition systems. That data and those systems are out for free on GitHub. If you go to our website, you can get it for free. And that was built as part of a competition that involved multiple countries sending persons to help in this particular narrative. So I think that there are practical things being developed. We need to move from having these systems just sit on a shelf to these systems actually being implemented. It is happening, but it should happen at a wider scale. And one of the reasons why it isn't happening that fast is because we need an AI ecosystem being created that would help in the transition of these tools into common consumers and common folk for having for free or not for free, whatever it is. It needs to be transitioned to that point with some education and how to use these things and what are the limitations.
Okay, now I'm glad you said that because I was thinking that's a lot of work being done, but not a lot of knowledge around it. Many people don't know. So I'm glad you mentioned that, we need to get the education of it going and removing it from the shelf, so to speak. You wanted to say something, Mr. Taylor?
Well, no, I would just, and Dr. Ramlal has summarized it very nicely. But there isn't in any sector, there's no sector that will not be impacted, right? So I mentioned that we focus heavily on tourism, even in terms of doing analysis, market analysis, marketing, campaigns and stuff using artificial intelligence, enhancing customer service, logistics, and so on around tourism. Yeah, so it basically will impact every sector. And the question is, how do we leverage it for the major economic drivers in the region for tourism, agriculture, education, even our creative industries? For sure, AI is impacting creative industries. Lots of art, music, movies even are being generated using AI tools. And the region is well known for its music and its culture, and therefore we need to look specifically at how these tools can help to enhance the creative industries for our region, so that we help to protect, but also enhance what we have to offer the world.
Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen. So there's both excitement and concern about AI's impact on employment. What skills will the Caribbean citizens need to develop and thrive in an AI-driven world? And how do we prepare our people for opportunities that may not even exist as yet?
Mr. Taylor, if you could take this one on a wider scale, then I can bring it down to what UE is doing because it would ultimately come down to what UE is going to do.
Yes, sure, no problem. So definitely we need to engage with the academic institutions, universities across the region to ensure that the programs are developed with AI in mind. So even for primary schools, we need to start teaching these basic skills on artificial intelligence because the digital literacy is going to become very important. I remember years ago when I started working, I worked for some time in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and of course, 99% of the people there are diplomats. But at the time when I came in, the internet was now, taking off. It was a big deal. And digital literacy, or at least computer literacy at the time, was a prerequisite for entry into the foreign service, right? And you would think, okay, we're dealing with diplomats, so they don't necessarily need to have these tools. That's back then. But now you will not be able to enter the job market without a basic understanding of artificial intelligence and the tools, how to use them, how to leverage them in your job. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're a secretary or a lecturer or a doctor even. These tools will enhance. So it's very important that we start teaching these in schools at all levels, primary schools, secondary school, universities, and even for professionals that they're able to do short courses and learn to how to leverage these tools. So AI, for example, and tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, they're not just search engines, right? If you give them the right prompts, and even creating a prompt that gives you the answer that you want is very important. So the question that you pose to the AI is important in the way that you structure it. If you ask the right question, if you put the right prompt, it will give you a completely, different result as if you just ask a generic question as though you're doing a Google search. So it's important that we understand how these tools are different from traditional tools that we've used and how they can be used in whatever job you are, even me as head of CTU. I'm not worried that AI will replace me, but I'm concerned about how it can help me enhance productivity within the office, how it can help me to do better analysis, better research, and so on. So I think whatever job you're in, I think you need to be mindful and not be afraid of being replaced by AI. But again, how it can be used to enhance your job and what skills do you need to better interact with these AI tools. I think that's very important.
Thanks for that,
Okay.
Mr. Taylor.
Okay, so I completely agree with everything Mr. Taylor has said. So what has happened is that as we transition through this general purpose technology, many things internationally have been happening that has been affecting the Caribbean region. In the first couple of years, we thought that we would have severe job loss. And we did see some things happening with the business processes outsourcing, the BPOs, because we do have a massive BPO sector in the Caribbean, as well as an aid in customer service for troubleshooting of devices and so on. These kinds of things we thought that we would see a massive layoffs with. There were some transitions from companies doing it, but it was not massive. Then we saw a case of this movement, especially in the tech companies, to do something called token maxing. So token maxing is where if you are using tokens, if you are using these ChatGPT or Claude tools in your work, that you would attempt to max how much of these tokens you use per day or per year, right? And it would be very high numbers, especially for tech companies. They would want the engineers to use things like 500,000 US of tokens a year, right? It's very high. But then what has happened is that the business landscape was always changing for these frontier companies. And so they have started increasing the cost of the tokens. So when people were token maxing, there were a bit of layoffs from the tech company side of things, where they were now replacing the engineers with engineers who can use AI agents, right? But then the front-end company started increasing the cost of these tokens, and it became more expensive to token max than to hire engineers to do the work. So we're going through this. It's an up and down period that we are going through, and we seem to be settling off on a level where we think that everyone will keep their job. It's you need to figure out how to enhance your job with AI. That's what it is. The productivity never changed. The productivity went up and never changed. It's just how you reach that level of productivity is the question. Is it that you do it with less amount of staff and more AI agents, or is it that you do it with same amount of staff with AI agents, but you depend on the AI agents less? And it seems that that is the future that we are moving toward. Okay, how do we get the skills for that particular future? So what we have done is that in the Caribbean AI Task Force, we have called for, as Mr. Taylor is saying, for AI to be taught at least the use of it and the limitations and the benefits of it at all levels, starting from the primary school level all the way up to the university level. Also doing short courses for the professional education, professional education for professionals as well. What we have done at the UE would be to develop co-curricular courses at the undergraduate level for persons who are not in the technical space to understand how to use these particular tools, especially for academic excellence. But we have also created a Master's of Applied Science in Artificial Intelligence, a Master's of Philosophy in Artificial Intelligence, and a doctoral program in Artificial Intelligence. This has been released for September 2026 intake, that's this September. And the end for registration is going to be by the end of July, and we are looking to push it to the middle of August if we depending on the numbers that we have coming into the programs themselves. This is for all members in the Caribbean. It's a blended type of program where you don't have to live in Trinidad and Tobago to do it. You can be abroad and do it. You may have some courses if you choose to come to Trinidad to do those courses, especially the labs, the physical labs. But it's meant for building these AI systems, because what is happening is that we have a lack of persons who can actually develop these particular systems moving forward. We looked at various types of studies where you have data science, you have machine learning, and so on. But what is required for an AI engineer now, looking at all of these data centers that may come to our shores, looking at the development of semiconductors, robotics is also inside of the AI toolkit. It's considered part of the AI field. They call it embedded AI now. All of that requires some sort of hardware on-demand type of understanding sensors and software and math. So to do that, we created our own set of programs that would aid in that. And this is under the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, of which the Artificial Intelligence Innovation Center is helping them do. So once we build out these postgraduate set of programs to help build or develop that capacity of our Caribbean people to build these tools, we are now looking next year to develop softer set of postgraduate programs, MPhils, PhDs, masters into policies with AI, business administration with AI, and so on. Right. So that is upcoming, but we need to get people to be able to build these systems internally first.
Okay, just wondering though, are these courses going to be available in due course at the different campuses? I know you have another campus in Mona, Jamaica, at Cave Hill in Barbados. Is that the plan, or are we just trying to get it on the ground first in Trinidad?
We're running it on the ground first in Trinidad, but most of the teaching is going to be online, so anyone can sign up for it and do it going forward. The other set of programs are partnered with the other campuses to get them to have that part. But we need to get this. This is very important for us to get on the ground.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks for that. So I'm glad you both mentioned infusing AI learning, into the education system from a very young age, because my next question has to do with that, because there are growing concerns that increased reliance on AI could reduce students' critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Do you share those concerns? And if so, how should our education systems respond?
Well, okay, Mr. Taylor, if you want to go first.
No, you go ahead first.
All right, no problem. So I have been an academic for 11 years, teaching, and when 2022 ChatGPT came out, we did see a massive dependence on ChatGPT. Even I have some MPhil, they're going into PhD now, some PhD students who, you can tell it's generated by ChatGPT, right? And that is something that is an issue for us. So I served on the United Nations Secretary General's high-level advisory body on AI. Between 2023 and 2024, we would have written the recommendations and policies to see how we can build out how you treat with this AI problem at the humanity level. I was in charge of education. This issue that we have, well, among many things, I was in charge of education. This issue we have is not an issue only for our region, but it was interesting to see how other regions were attacking this problem, right? Because critical thinking is a must, but it's not the first time we have had this issue. When Wikipedia was released years ago, the same problem came up where people thought, oh, we are going to lose critical thinking for these students and so on. And what has happened is that the examination style has changed. I would have helped write the UE AI policy, well, a couple of us, for all of the campuses and how we treat with this AI. And some of the major things that we said was that the lecturers themselves are the ones who should say if AI is to be used in the course or not, and for what particular way that it can be used. For us, the point of the story is that for every sector is going to demand a different type of examination. But for us, our accreditors, we are in engineering, our accreditors has told us that you cannot go back to pen and paper for most of these courses. You cannot do that. You are engineering, in engineering, you are supposed to solve complex problems. You need software to solve complex problems, right? This is the point of bringing all these people, but you also need critical thinking skills to solve complex problems. So how are you going to do that? So they said that we need to reduce the number of courseworks that we give to students, but at the same time, we need to change the assessment criteria on how we assess our students. So what we have done is that we allow the students to use ChatGPT, we allow the students to build these systems, and for the examination phase, we have you on the board independently as a person, and from your report and your work, you go through it, and it's like a viva. You explain exactly what you have done, and we nitpick and pull out things, and you have to explain what is going on. For us, it is very important to see how you think about the processes and how you came up with the solution based on what problems you were facing at the time. What did you think about when you did this? And I think that is that is going to be a common narrative for most courses. For courses where you have 1,000 students, you cannot do that for sure, right? That has to have a different kind of assessment. But for these types of critical thinking, high complex solving problems, this is what we are doing. We have to always remember And this is my last point. We have to always remember the purpose of a university or any academic institution is to create the persons necessary that move into the job market and can exceed in the job market. The job market right now is using these tools heavily. We have not had an industry come and tell us, or any company come and tell us that they are not using any one of these frontier tools. So what is important is how to properly use these frontier tools and how do we retain critical thinking in our public masses.
Okay. Thanks for that, Dr. Ramlal. Before I ask Mr. Taylor his views, I just remember last year I was with a friend and her 9-year-old daughter, 9. So I support everything you said about university students. I didn't even know this was a thing. She took a picture of her mathematics homework and popped it in something online and it generated the responses, and I was blown away. 9. So that's the issue I have when you start that young for it to solve it for you without figuring it out. And her mom caught her and she had to put it away and explain everything she did. So that is where I am having the issue with. Okay, over to you, Mr. Taylor.
No, but that example you gave is excellent. So if she's able to put away the paper and explain the answer, then I think that's the critical thinking part. I know there's a concern. It's a valid concern that maybe students will just drop the question in ChatGPT and generate the answer, and there's no thinking.
Yeah.
But you must be able to critique even what the AI generates. You have to be able to see it, understand its structure, even, like I said, to give the right prompt. And as a professional, you will know if the answer is right or wrong. And I would say that, you know, I will go back maybe even to a calculator or to spreadsheets where a person may think, well, it diminishes your thinking or critical thinking if you're not adding numbers by hand, for example, right? When there's a calculator there or there's a spreadsheet there that has the formula that's calculating it for you. So these innovations will always have an impact. There will always be a concern about what impact it has on our thinking, or critical thinking, or ability to reason, and so on. But I think we just have to, we call them guardrails, to ensure that, yes, you can put the paper away and explain. It doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't use the tools. The tools are very important in helping you get to the answer more quickly, I would say. But you have to be able to put the paper away and explain exactly how, your reasoning or the way that this answer was generated.
All right, thanks for that, gentlemen. So we're getting ready to wrap up in a while, but before we do, AI brings enormous opportunities, but it also raises questions about privacy, misinformation, bias, and accountability. What safeguards do we need to put in place to ensure that AI is developed and used responsibly in the Caribbean context? And we've touched a bit on that in your last response, but anything else you'd like to add?
I would say that, and that's why it's important for us from the CTU, because we interact with governments mostly, that the right policies and legislative frameworks are in place. I start with things like data protection to ensure that there's that basic protection, in particular when it comes to personal identifiable information, something that specifically identifies me, to ensure that that protection is there. We also have to have policies that promote innovation, so that it doesn't seek to overregulate or stymie the deployment of innovation within the market, and in this case, artificial intelligence, but it promotes its use within even academia, within businesses, small, medium enterprises, within agriculture, and so on. So we want to help our policymakers understand what legislation is needed to put in place. I think one or two jurisdictions have AI-specific legislation. There's none so far that I'm aware of in the Caribbean. Maybe that at some point will be put on the table. We have a ministry here in Trinidad and Tobago, artificial intelligence. So clearly there's a very sharp focus from the national point of view. So we'll work with ministers and our policymakers to ensure that the right environment is in place around promoting it as a technology, making sure that it is regulated for good, addressing things like misinformation. Some jurisdictions, for example, require you to state whether or not AI has been used in the production of whether it's, work or say an ad campaign, and there's concern too, in particular around political campaigns, the production of images where you can have someone saying something that they didn't say. Basically, you recreate the person's image and likeness and their voice, and you can understand the potential to abuse that technology in political campaigns and so on. Even identifying voter patterns and voter habits and using that as an advantage over one political party. So those are concerns we have. I can't say that we have all the solutions. Even the developed countries are battling with this, and some countries have completely banned access to AI tools. There are some countries I've been to where you don't have access to these tools because of those particular concerns. But it is something we'll have to continue to address and grapple with, looking at what is happening in the rest of the world, but also given our own context, what steps we can take to guard against those harms.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to add anything, or you could?
Sure, yeah, I can add. I think it was well said. I think one of the things that has been happening with us in the Caribbean is that we do have a lag in how we adopt technology, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing with it is that we see everyone else as like an experiment. We see what is working here, what is not working, and we look at it at those cases. But the bad thing about it is that we are slow to get opportunity from it. And so we do lose a lot. We lose our voices inside of the global policy making. We lose economic benefit, which is a major, major loss, since we are very slow to adopt. We lose protection of ourselves and how we create barriers so that we are not harmed by what is going on outside based on technology disruptions. So I think that it's better that we do have the adoption, and we do have the governance in place first before we start the adoption. So I think that it's very necessary for us to, and when we did this, and we looked at the interim report and we looked at some of the guidelines and recommendations, and we went to CTU's General Conference of Ministers. The ministers told us that we should have had this done since last year. We should have completed this before time. So there's a massive, massive push that is nearly unanimous across the CARICOM states that we have to have these sort of harmonized AI policies and recommendations going forward. So it's something that we will develop. It's very high on the priority list for CARICOM, and something that we will definitely through the CTU, of course, go through. And once we have that type of agreement for these recommendations and policies, we are going to look at implementation and how these policies will pan out soon. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for that, Dr. Ramlal. So where can interested persons find more information about the forum? Where can they register? And for those who cannot join you in Trinidad in person, is there a virtual component?
Absolutely. So you can go to ctu.int, ctu.int. You'll see right there on the banner, the homepage, you'll see a banner for the Artificial Intelligence Forum. You click on that, and you'll have a high-level agenda there. You'll have speakers there, and you will have the registration link for remote participation. So we're at full capacity now for in-person participation. So that's fully subscribed. And so we are encouraging persons to register to attend. There's no limit on that number. So once you click on the remote participation link, you get registered, and you're good to go. So next week,
There's no
Thursday
cost
and
to
Friday.
participate, Mr. Taylor. It's free, or you have to
Yes,
pay?
it is free. It is free. And maybe we're intergovernmental organization. We want to ensure that our forums like these are accessible to everyone. So there's no barrier to entry in terms of cost. And we are being thankfully hosted by the University of the West Indies. We signed an MOU with them just a few weeks ago. So we're happy to host it there as well at no cost to us. So we're able to get support from the private sector as well to offset some of the costs. So we encourage all of our stakeholders to register and be a part of this very, very timely discussion.
Thank you for that. Any closing remarks, gentlemen?
Well, let me go, let me, let me,
Yeah.
let me go first. Yeah, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share these few comments with respect to AI and how it's impacting the Caribbean. Of course, the big discussion takes place next week, Thursday and Friday. Many different perspectives. We do have the president of the CTU giving the keynote address. We have some UN agencies as well that will be involved, bringing the International Telecommunications Union that has been a part of this process. A lot of the work we did is based on UNESCO's roadmap for the Caribbean as well. So we're seeking to bring all of these issues together under one roof and kind of come up with some recommendations. Of course, the recommendations are in the report itself, but it's an opportunity now to have this public discussion, to hear different views, and then decide how we can move forward from here as a region. So it's timely. I'm always optimistic with respect to new technologies. You understand that very often the negative impact gets highlighted, but we certainly cannot sit back and let the rest of the world move forward. We have to ensure that we are at the forefront of technology. We can drive innovation from here as well, even if we don't develop the tools ourselves, we can leverage the tools to help improve our economic growth and development. So I'm very excited about this opportunity. And I think it's a good opportunity for us as small islands because small also means agile, which means we are able to do things much faster than the large economies, that are spread all over the place. But we can do things more quickly, and we can deploy across the public sector much more quickly than the large economies can. So I'm very excited about this opportunity, and pleased to be working with persons like Dr. Ramlal, who's served internationally within the United Nations as well. It's good that we have him as a resource in the region, and we certainly will be using him and UWI, our relationship with UWI going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Dr. Ramla?
Yes, I think that there are many events happening, but this would be, in my mind, the most consequential AI event that will happen in the Caribbean for some time. And hopefully this happens every year going forward. The reason why is who is putting it on and who is coming to these events. This is aiming towards a multilateral cooperation, like what Mr. Taylor said, having all of these multilaterals coming to one roof to discuss these things, because we are looking at everyone having a common voice moving forward. So UNESCO, ECTEL, all of these people, the ITU, all of them are invited to come and discuss what they are doing, as well as how we can move forward as cooperation going ahead. And the CTU and the EU has a very strong brand, and who we report to is also very strong. So these are things where oftentimes you go to conferences and you just talk. These are things where we talk and we move it into action. There's going to be some output coming out of this conference, and people will know what is happening. So this is going to be very, very consequential. If you have to go to one conference on AI in the Caribbean, that's this one.
All right. I'm sold. So I'll be signing up to participate virtually. Thank you for that. So we typically have a rapid fire segment where I ask you something that you don't overthink. Are you game? Are you up for it? Yes?
Sure.
All right. So what is one misconception about AI that you would like to correct? Very briefly.
Me. Everyone thinks AI is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So AI is not just large language models. It has been existing for a long time. It is based on image detection as well as many models. So, and the reason why it just bugs me when everybody thinks that AI is ChatGPT is because the first thing they think about is, oh, you need large data centers and you need large sets of resources to build AI systems. This is not the case at all. You can build AI tools, you can build machine learning tools with your own laptop, and you can build very advanced base systems with your own laptop, because even the frontier models and the frontier companies are moving towards getting their models smaller, because it is not economically feasible or environmentally feasible for them to operate how they're operating right now. So that's my pet peeve. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say that the conception that AI is the end of the world as we know it, that the machines will take over, have all of our jobs, and supersede human intelligence. Of course, computers will always be able to process data a lot faster, large data sets much faster than we can. These tools will take 500-page reports and do an analysis, a 4-page analysis within seconds. Of course, we are unable to do that, but it doesn't mean that they will replace us. I think it will enhance our lives, and in particular, if we take the right approaches and policies to ensure that we use them effectively.
Okay, thank you. Beach meeting or boardroom meeting? Which do you prefer? Meeting on the
Beach meeting.
Well,
beach.
yeah, that's easy. I mean, we're in we're in the Caribbean, so people come from all over the world to work here, and the first place they want to live is next to the beach. So it
Okay.
makes perfect sense. If I can work and be just as productive and happy,
Yeah.
beach every time.
All right. Coffee, tea, or
Even,
oh, go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
Even when we bring our international partners, all the time they ask to go to the beach. And so sometimes we just rent somewhere at the beach and have it because they identify Caribbean as beaches and lovely spaces. And so
Yeah.
why not use it to our advantage, especially if we can merge tech, policy, diplomacy, all these things into it. Why not?
Yeah, makes more sense. All right. Coffee, tea, or juice?
Tea.
Oh,
Okay, tea,
coffee, I
coffee.
guess. I don't know, it depends.
Okay,
I
Mr.
didn't
Tea.
have my coffee for the morning as yet. I need
Oh
to
dear.
do
Okay, we're gonna say
something.
okay. And the final one, what's one word you hope attendees will take away from the CTU Caribbean Artificial Intelligence? One word. What
Opportunity.
everybody saying. Opportunity. Okay.
Advancement.
Advancement and opportunity. Thanks for playing along, gentlemen. I appreciate that. Okay, so thank you to Mr. Taylor and Dr. Ramlal for being our guests on episode 44 of ECTEL Bytes, and we wish the organizers all the very best for an impactful Caribbean Artificial Intelligence Forum. And may this be the first of many AI forums across the region, inspiring collaboration and innovation as we work together towards a shared digital future for the Caribbean. So in case you joined us late, our special guests were the Secretary General of the CTU, that's the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, Mr. Rodney Taylor, and the Executive Director of the Artificial Intelligence Innovation Center, or the AIIC, at the University of West Indies, Dr. Craig Ramlal. If you have any questions at all, be sure to leave them in the comment section below, and we will be happy to reply. Apart from being on our Facebook page, this recording of ECTEL Bytes will also be on our YouTube channel, which is at ECTEL, and on Instagram, LinkedIn, and X at ECTEL Authority, and of course, on our website, www.ectel.int. So please share with a contact who may not be on social media. That's it for episode 44 of ECTEL Bytes. I'm your host, Coretta Crooks-Strauss, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. Until next time, do take care and keep safe.